Well, long time no talk. I did mention that it's going to be feast or famine, and that's just because life gets busy, and life gets busy. This is not going to be a Lego video. So if you're here for Lego, there was, I'm trying to remember now. I would say it's just stuck in my head. It was a comedian, and I believe it was on ABC, which is the American Broadcasting Corporation, that brought us such wonderful hits as The Love Boat and the Fantasy Islands back in the day. For those of you who are my age, remember all those wonderful shows. ABC. There was a comedian. I won't even remember their name. I will not remember his name at all. I don't remember too much about him. But he got his own primetime special in I want to say late 70s, early 80s, somewhere in there. And I remember vividly watching the TV, and I didn't know who he was. I'm sure he guest starred on The Love Boat, because everybody back then guest starred at least once on The Love Boat. He had his own, I think it was ABC. He had his own ABC special on a Sunday night or whatever night. And it started off with him in a nondescript room, sitting in a chair, and he's talking to the camera. You know, irony. Talking to the camera, and he says, well, the network gave me lots of money to make a special for you, wonderful viewing audience. And I basically blew all the money. So all I got left to actually make this special is me, this chair, and a camera. So we'll spend the next 2 hours just talking. And I could have been 5 minutes, it could have been 2.5 minutes. But I remember him joining on about, yeah, I wasted all the money with partying and whatever else. And but I had to come up with something very last minute. So I'm just going to sit here in this chair and talk to the camera. and that's going to be the special. And then he droned on for a little bit, but he said, oh, and then the walls parted and there was dancing girls and stairs and, you know, fireworks and stuff like that. I psyched you out. That's been in my head forever. And again, I could not tell you who the comedian was. I don't remember the comedian at all. Even back then, again, I didn't know who he was. What I'm trying to do here is put monorail curves in a Ziploc, because they're going to be shipped. Oh, and I have 2 straights. That should fit too. So there we go. So hopefully I can close the Ziploc and be done with it. So this is going to be tight. And because they're going to be shipped. I am shipping monorail. So this is not the Lego conversation. So monorail in the box. I gotta wrap it in some bubble wrap, I guess. I have to figure out how to fill this thing up. And a few extra sort of pieces, odds and sods, in the box. This should have happened weeks and months ago, but due to my life as it is right now, I'm gonna reuse an Amazon box that we got. So I was thinking about what other parts and pieces I could throw in there, because it's going to a friend. So I'm trying to get it done. I have been negligent, sadly negligent in my responsibilities to my friends and my viewing audience, and yada yada, because life just gets life takes busy. But that's not what I came to talk about either. So much like that guy from 1979 or whatever that special was on, there's some subterfuge, as they say. Subterfuge. It's one of those words I never could actually pronounce properly. Subterfuge. I used to be able to spell it too, but that's gone. Some little misdirection. It's an easier word to say. I haven't done this in a while. I haven't been down here in a while since the last time I made a video. So that's been a bit, because life happens. Today, we were out for a drive, and we stopped by a wonderful place that's been around since I was a kid. It's called Fulton Feeds. It's way out there in Nowheresville, kind of bordering Smithville and Grimsby and Winona and whatever. Anyway, so it's over there. And you go there because it's farm country to buy feed and or whatever for your farm. They are a supplier of stuff for cows and horses and whatever else. They also have deer feed, and this is the blessing of this part of the year, is that the deer that live in the Niagara Escarpment come to our back door, which is when I think about it, I need a haircut. That since Sandy and I have lived here, we've been blessed, again, how blessed my life is, about how the deer come straight up onto our deck. And back in the day, Sandy and I would actually at nighttime be laying on the floor. We'd put a blanket down, put some pillows down. We'd be laying on the floor with the sliding door open, and the deer feed would be right in the door of our unit. And they come and eat and then walk away. We haven't done that for a long time. We just put the feed out on the deck. And they come up on the deck, and we got the security cameras, videotaping deer. We take pictures, put them on Facebook. Hey, we got new neighbors. We love it. And considering that we are not out by Fulton, which is Nowheresville, the crossroads of the Niagara Peninsula, well, that's Smithville, but it's outside of Smithville, that we are actually, if you actually looked at a map of where we are, I'm not going to tell you where we live, but if you looked at a map, you would see city all around us. We are not downtown Hamilton, but we are in the mighty metropolis of Hamilton. And the saving grace for me and Sandy is that we have the Niagara Escarpment in our backyard. If you look up the Niagara Escarpment, it's not a mountain. It's kind of happened by glaciers 50,000 years ago, but it's an escarpment. The change of height, the change of latitude between the bottom and the top is maximum 300 feet. From what I remember from my geography class way back in the day. It is a geological formation. They say it happened because of the ice ages, but also it's just a limestone, and where we live now is whatever. So we live in the middle of the Niagara Escarpment, and it's very hard to build houses, buildings, and or whatever infrastructure on a slope that's 300 feet. So there's below the escarpment, we say, where the city is, and there's above the escarpment, we say. It's not the Rockies, it's not the Appalachians, and not the Adirondacks. It's just the escarpment. But I've loved it. It's been in my peripheral vision literally my entire life. I've never lived 5 miles away from this escarpment. I've lived along, but like the escarpment's always been, when I'm driving home, there's the escarpment. The escarpment for us, not geologically, but the escarpment for us runs from Niagara Falls to Tobermory, and it goes underneath the water at Tobermory and comes up Manitoulin Island and goes across and comes down on the other side of Lake Huron and down the other side of Lake Michigan. That's the geological. And there's a cutaway view I saw years ago where the Niagara Escarpment limestone basically starts, ironically, which I always loved, called Winona, Winona, or the city of Winona in Michigan, I think, yeah, or Minnesota. The escarpment limestone is basically a cup, and it goes underneath the Great Lakes from there, and it comes up over here in Ontario, and it's in our backyard. So I saw it both in Winona, Minnesota. I think it's Minnesota, not Michigan. Winona, Minnesota, and Winona, Ontario. They both have the escarpment in their backyard, which I think is really neat. But anyway, so the escarpment, I've hiked it, most of it, lots of it, especially in the Stony Creek, Winona, Grimsby area. Just as a kid, we'd run up there and run across the escarpment. The Bruce Trail. The Bruce Trail itself goes from, I believe, the statue of, what's this? So this is the sucky part of my memory these days. Isaac Brock. can't believe I forgot that. It goes from the Isaac Brock Monument, basically, is where the Bruce Trail starts, and it goes all the way up to Tobermory. 600 miles or 600 kilometers, if I remember correctly. It could be more, it could be less. But anyway, my grade 13 geography class, which is going to lead into my next conversation. My grade 13 geography class, we hiked for a week. We went up to the Lion's Head, and we went from Lion's Head to Tobermory as a hike, which is fantastic. I don't think we came all the way down to Wyerton, but we did a bunch of the Bruce Trail up there, and hiked and camped, which was awesome for grade 13s. Mr. Okawa, fantastic man. He passed away last year. One of my favorite teachers. So that does lead into this discussion. Not that I wanted it to go there, but we're here now. That's what I want to talk about. So somehow in my head, without subconsciously, I was going to go in this direction anyway. And so talking about Winona and the escarpment led to my geography class. Mr. Okawa was a wonderful geography teacher. I remember him being in high school. The first time I met him, he was a master of judo and karate, and he was a big guy. And I remember being in grade 9 or 10, and one of my friends, acquaintances, not close buddies, named Mike. I won't mention his last name to save him from being embarrassed. Mike was, even in grade 9 or 10, a very big boy. And then he played football, but he was very bulky, and 200 plus at least in grade 9. And there were some shenanigans, not bad shenanigans that deserves to be expelled or suspended, but there were some shenanigans going on in the hallway between classes. And Mr. Okawa did not like the shenanigans that was going on, and he picked Mike up. He went over to Mike Armadero, who was already 6 foot and beefy, picked him up, boom, against the wall. Don't do that. But we're all, he picked the guy up. It's like picking me up as a scrawny 120-pound guy back then. Picking me up would be nothing. Pick Mike Armadero, don't do that. Of course, you could do that back in the day, back in 1982. I can't do that now. But anyway, so thinking about Mr. Okawa and everything else, and there's actually a whole bunch of tangents that all relate to each other. I was, again, as I keep on saying, repeating myself, blessed, absurdly blessed with the people I know, including the teachers I've had and the professors I've had at universities and colleges. And but I especially remember my grade school and my high school. And again, grade school was 1,000,000 years ago, and high school was almost 1,000,000 years ago. But I still remember my teachers, the ones that influenced me. And the blessing is, most of the teachers that I've had in my life, even if they were not my teachers directly, but they were in the school, were wonderful. Absolutely. It seemed the Winona, the little village of Winona, and the high school and the public school thereof, attracted fantastically wonderful, decent human beings who were very, very interested in the success of the kids at that school, even if they weren't even taking classes. I could regale for the next 10 years stories about my grade school and my high school career and the teachers that I had. But let's go back to Fulton Feeds today. I walk in to my deer feed, because the deer in the backyard, in the Niagara Escarpment. I walk in today, and the person behind the cash register, who was ringing me up for the deer feed that I was buying for our new neighbors for the winter. Oh, Cowdays, did I go to school with you? And I hear this a lot. I've been hearing this a lot my entire life, because my last name is not unique in these here parts. It's not unique at all. Everywhere else in the world is pretty unique. Not too many Cowdaces out there in the world. But in this area, I am the youngest of 22, well, not the youngest, my cousin Judy's the youngest, my sister's, but third youngest of 22 cousins with all the same last name. And of course, all the parents of all his cousins, my uncles and aunts, my dad and mom, were very well known in the community of Winona and Stony Creek and Hamilton and surrounding areas. And so when I walk around and I say, I know immediately if somebody knows somebody from my family when they know how to pronounce my last name. Because you look at the spelling and it doesn't look at all like it's supposed to be pronounced. So when I walked in there and the girl goes, "Oh, Countess, I went to high school with you or grade school with you," and I'm going, I used to be really good at knowing who I went to school with and remembering what they look like and blah blah blah, but I'm going, oh, this is bad because again I know my flaky memory. I said, "Oh, what went on high school?" She goes, "No, grade school. That's even going farther back." And she goes, "Yeah, you played on the football team." Aha, not me. Not me. One of my many cousins, because I never ever played football. I played soccer in grade 13, but I never played football. I go, "Oh, you might be thinking about my brother Brian." And I go, no. She goes, "No." And I said, "Well, I was born in 67. She goes, "I was born in 66. Oh, then you're talking about your cousin Bob, because Bob is a year older than me." No, she goes, we were in Mr. Canduth's class." Oh, okay. So Mr. Canduth, nice guy, our French teacher, but also my homeroom teacher in grade 7. Really, really nice guy. I liked him. He was French. Nothing wrong with that. Quebec French. And he was a nice guy. I had some chats with him. And then he would talk about Mr. Spira in grade 8. Ah, Spira. A little bit of an odd duck. I'll say that. A little bit of an odd duck. Not that this is the epitome of odd duck right here. But really nice guy, Mr. Spira, science teacher. And he's the one that, like the astronomy and the stars and stuff like that, and taught us, nuclear valences and stuff like that. Wonderful guy, liked him a lot. And then we started talking about and the fellow classmates that we had, and the people she was naming. Oh yeah. So you were in my class because she was, because we all had the same friends. So not my cousin Bob, was actually me, but I didn't play in the football team. So there's whatever, it doesn't matter. So we had a nice little chat, caught up with that, and we were talking about the friends we had and the good times we had. Mr. Garside, beautiful man, absolutely beautiful man, grade 6 teacher, end of his ed teacher, the gym teacher for all the school. Wonderful. And I met him years later, and this is again memory. So Mr. Garside, very well respected by me and the rest of the class. No shenanigans happened in his room, because if you love the teacher, you never got into trouble. Overall, I never got into trouble anyway, because it wasn't in my being to get into trouble. But Mr. Garside's class was very smooth because all the kids adored him. Because not only was our homeroom teacher and our teacher for the semester or the year, but he was also the phys ed teacher. So it was great. So this is going way back, and I think it's just before I met Sandy, or I actually was with, no, it must have been before, because of the old, I'm in Tim Hortons one day, so over 20 years ago, so I was 34. So well past grade school, because you leave grade school when you're 12 or something like that. So about 20, 30 years. 20 years later, I'm in line at Tim Hortons. Yeah. Okay. I'm in Tim Hortons line, and all of a sudden, Dave, and I turn around, and there's this older gentleman there. And I'm going, he goes, "It's Ron." And I'm going, "Ron?" Ron Garside. "Oh, Mr. Garside." See, I'd never ever called the teachers by their first name. It's just, I don't do it now. My parents' friends, it's still Mr. and Mrs. When I go revisit my church that I grew up in, and all those people that were my elders of the church back then, I'd never use their, "Dave, you're 55 or 58 now. You can call it 5." No. Mr. Mrs. So Mr. Garside. Mr. Garside. Oh, hug, and whatever. But anyway, so I'm going to go for dinner, but I'll wrap this up really, really quick, because I wanted to go somewhere with this. So I'm talking to my friend at the store today at Fulton Feeds, and we started talking about this, that, and the other thing. And I said, there was one teacher at that school, at the Winona Polo School, that icked me out. And I'm oblivious to most things. He icked me out. And I said, and I mentioned the teacher's name. And I said, "I found him pretty icky." And she goes, "So did I." And I said, "And so did every girl in the class. This guy was a predator." And I got that. I'm like 12 years old in grade 8. And this guy icked me out. And I'm a guy. I had nothing. And finding that even after all these years in my head, boom, instantly I was icked out. It was like, ugh. And she said, yeah, all the girls in the classroom were icked out by this guy. And that bothered me because it was the early 80s. And this guy was allowed to teach, and knowing that the entire classroom was icked out by this guy, and yet he was still allowed to be there, it bothered me. And I was going to go on about it, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to go for dinner. And I'm just going to let it go, because I'm sure he's passed away by now. But he was icky. And to have that visceral response for hearing his name 40 years after the fact, or yeah, 40 years or 45 years after the fact, is astounding to me. That didn't even think about him for the last 20, 30 years. But the second I'm talking to somebody from that school, that era, and she mentioned it and I mentioned it, we both had exactly the same response about this guy. This stuff sticks with you. It sticks with you in the back of your head. You know when you're walking past somebody, it's just gonna, like, trust your aversion to these people. Trust it. Because it's there. And I don't know what happened. It doesn't matter to me. I will never not listen to the voice in my head and my revulsion for certain people and lack of appreciation of certain people. Because so far, it's been dead on. Anyway, that's it. That's all. Nice quick video. Talk to you guys soon.